What's good, everybody? DJ TMac here for another great hip hop conversation. Today we have a producer in the building. He is from Canada, but his style, his sound, you wouldn't know it. And we're going to talk about Canadian hip hop and a whole bunch of different topics here today. But we have Imperative in the building. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I believe you came on my radar after my very first conversation with G4 Jag.
Okay.
So before my conversation with him, I wasn't really too tapped into the underground scene. But after that, I kind of was exposed to a lot more through him, Lord Mob, and then a whole bunch of other people. So I think that's initially how you got on my radar and been following you ever since. So it's cool to get to talk with you here today.
That's dope. And shout out to G4 Jag. Him and I, we're well overdue for some music. I mean, we've got a bunch of stuff in the vault. I am part of his Fly Family crew, which is like kind of like that's his crew under Lord Mob. But yeah, shout out to G4 Jag and hopefully we unearth some of that music that we've got in the vault. So
yeah, can't wait to hear that, man. And salute to him. Shout out to him also. He just dropped a new project that is sounding great. I would love to have him here on the show again. But we got Imperative in the building. He's worked with the likes of, like we just mentioned, G4 Jag, Benny the Butcher, Rick Hyde, Zaza God, Mickey Factz, and many, many more great artists. He has a very sample-based style, but I would say it's hard to pinpoint a sound down after that. You have a definitely variety of styles and beats. How would you describe your style to somebody who's never heard your music or heard of the artists that I just mentioned?
I guess the easiest way would be like I make beats and produce tracks for rappers. That's really like I think the first and foremost thing. Grimy, gutter is more, I guess, my brand. Gutter is the brand that I'm trying to do. But I think I've really found a niche and carved a name and a lane for myself in this kind of grimy underground boom bap hip hop. But yeah, I mean, not to take away from myself, I have a diverse sound, and I can make all different types. I mean, if you really look at my catalog, you'll hear some more trap sounding stuff, and that comes from. So I started out making music in Vancouver, BC, and I started with like that boom bap sound, but they didn't really like that sound out there. Vancouver is it's West Coast, Northwest Coast. So they were a little bit of a different sound. So it was either I just keep making, these boom bap beats and just keep putting them in a vault, or I kind of adapt and learn, which, I think is a good thing because you learn different skills and things that you can transfer over to other things. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until, I was still kind of doing what I love, but at the same time, it took a while. It took kind of Griselda putting like boom bap renaissance on the map to allow me to be like, and I guess I'm back in Ontario now. But I think all those things combined, I can kind of just do what I want now. I've made my own name and I can make what I want, and rather than trying to cater to other people.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, that's a great space to be in for sure. When would you say you first started producing and making music? And was that like your first experience in music, or as a child or as a kid, did you, grow up, playing instruments or involved in music in any way?
No music as a child. I mean, I had teachers, I think, like I can remember teachers saying that I had rhythm and stuff like that. That was probably like elementary school. Like I want to say like grade 2, grade 3. I can like vividly remember that, but no music. I think I got my start in music around really starting to dabble a little bit in like 2009, 2010. I used to be a competitive snowboarder, and I just come off an injury. So I collapsed my eye socket. So I have a metal plate in here, snowboarding. And that just kind of like changed things. And snowboarding was my creative outlet. And when you don't have that creative outlet, it was like searching for like, what can I do now to be creative since I don't have that? And at the time, my younger brother, he was actually out in Vancouver going to school for audio engineering, and he was doing some hip hop production stuff. So I was like, through snowboarding, you get a chance through the videos and commercials and all that, you get a chance to discover all this dope music. And I really attribute like my music, you know, what I like and stuff to skateboard videos and snowboard videos. So I was like, all right, like I'm just gonna roll with my brother here and get into this and you know, see where this goes. And I kind of just made a decision that that's what I wanted to do. And here we are later, 2023.
Yeah. Time flies, right? It's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's interesting how you know, that story, I could kind of relate to that, being influenced you know, towards hip hop, but not exactly just through the music or the videos, you know, through video games or like commercials, like you said. You know, hip hop has its fingers everywhere now. So I like that story. It's cool. And we've had that talk here with a professional skateboarder and rapper, Windsor James, before, that hip hop and skateboarding connection. There's a lot of crossover.
Definitely. I mean, Windsor and I have chatted a little bit as well. And I mean, hip hop has its fingers everywhere. And I also say, like, people are like, they're like, oh, like, what kind of music do you make? And I go, hip hop. And you can kind of either see their face, like if they're like an older person or something like that. And then I instantly rebuttal, like, hip hop is every genre. So it has its fingers everywhere in terms of like the commercials and pop culture. But I mean, it has its hands in every genre of music, you know, especially when you come from sampling. Like, you know,
Very true.
A bit of a mess over here. I know we're doing a little bit of video, but my record collection over there. But I mean, like, you know, from rock to funk, like when you're sampling, it can come from anything, really. So, you know, hip hop, I say is every genre.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Would you say when you first started making beats, was it sample based that you tried to do or emulate, or was it more just, you know, on the computer in the DAW?
It was definitely sample based. At the time, I was listening to. I mean, it was a little bit of both, but it was definitely more sample heavy. My inspirations at that time were Kanye, Ski Beats, Alchemist, guys like that. So, you know, for me, it was like through YouTube videos and stuff like that. You start like watching, you're seeing them playing with the records, so you're like, okay, and then from there, like learning about producers are going to have different takes on this, but there's a website called Who Sampled, which you can type in a song, and if it has a sample, if it's been found, will likely come up there. So I'd find myself searching these and like downloading the sample and trying to like rechop and recreate what they did, so I could understand the process of like, okay, here's the final product. And I'd be like listening, oh, like there's that little piece, and like trying to recreate it. So that really helped me try and figure that out and navigate that. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's dope, man. I definitely dig your chops and your style, and especially the beat breakdown videos that you put out there, and kind of show people like, hey, this is, you know, how this song was constructed. It's really cool, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I mean, the beat breakdowns, I mean, a lot of these beats are, I'll be the first person to say this. I am not the best beat maker by any means. I'm a good and efficient beat maker. I'm a better producer and you know, finalizing songs and stuff. Like, there are beat makers out there that are just like, when you hear the stuff they put together, it's crazy. But I think where some of my success has come in is I keep things, it's the, you know, the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? And I like to build a canvas, like I said earlier, for rappers to rap on, right? So I try not to overthink things these days. I try not to. I used to be a producer where I was like, every sample I heard, it was like, I can't loop it, I have to chop it. Like, I have to, like, you know, there was like this stigma against looping because you weren't doing that much. But then now, as I'm loop, and I'm like, this is a dope loop. Like, what do I need to do to this to really make it any better, right? And it's like, if I can hear the rapper rapping on it already, it's like, why am I fighting it, right? And so yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there, lost where I was at.
No, it's perfect, man. It's producer talk. That's what we're here for. You know, definitely talking to more producers this year, and it's inspiring, man. It's inspiring me to get back into chopping up something, looping up something myself. So keep it up. I really dig it. Your social media presence and just business mind, like, is I can tell you definitely take a lot of time. Very systematic with what you're doing, it seems like. And we're going to get into the business side a little bit too. But let's talk about more about your process in making music. Actually, rewind because I thought of a question during your last answer. Can you sort of break down the difference between a beat maker, producer, and the engineer, and sort of
Sure.
how they all kind of connect and work together?
Yeah, of course. So I think a producer these days, the lines have been blurred on that one. And I think the reason is you had guys like Pete Rock and DJ Premier who were both beat makers and producers. And then their impact on the culture, you started getting that bracket PROD period DJ Premier, produced by DJ Premier, and that started becoming the credit. So then these new upcoming producer beat makers, they didn't really know the difference. They just see that and they're like, well, I want my credit, I want my shine, I want my name. So they started doing that. To me, a beat maker is someone who just makes a beat, dope, they sell it or give it to someone else, and they're not part of the process any further. They've made a beat, and that's that. Now, it can be said that they produced that beat. So this is where the lines get kind of blurred, and maybe it needs to be updated for 2023. But if you just make a beat and then you give it away or sell it, give it away, and you have no part in that, sure, you produced the beat, but you had no hand in producing the overall song. So a producer is someone who takes that idea in the song. Maybe they just fund it. Maybe they just have the idea. So that's where the DJ Khaled kind of comes in. And I saw someone was talking, DJ Khaled does nothing. DJ Khaled has an idea. He's like, I think this person would sound dope on this, and he has the money to fund it. He's still a producer. He's producing a song, right? Even in the word itself, it says producing. So you got to produce something, produce results, whatever it might be. The engineer is the person who either tracks the vocals, mixes and masters. They're more sounds, EQing, compression, things like that. An engineer can be a producer. A beat maker can be a producer. Producer, yeah. So they all kind of intertwine there, but that's kind of where I lie. So sometimes I will say, like, sometimes I am just a beat maker. Sometimes an artist doesn't want my hand in the rest of it, right? And I prefer being a producer. Like, I usually, when I make a beat, I can hear someone on it. I can visualize music videos. I can visualize art, like cover art and things like that. So that's where my skills lie, is really seeing the bigger picture. And that's why I think when I mentioned earlier, it's simplified my beat making process. I see a bigger picture rather than, focusing on minute details.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Nice. I appreciate the breakdown there. How do you like to find samples nowadays? Obviously, I got the records behind me. You got records behind you. You do it the analog classic way. You can digitally dig now. How do you find yourself digging now, and how has your process maybe evolved, if it has?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I think when I first started, 2010 was actually right around that time was right when Native Instruments launched Machine. I originally had an MPC 1000, but the pads didn't work, and it didn't work. So I mean, I was, like I said earlier, I was intrigued by the guys sampling vinyl, but I just didn't have that at my disposal. When you're just starting, it's not like you have all the gear. So I think I started with a MIDI keyboard, and then so you were able to download YouTube samples, right? So that was the start, and I still do a lot of e-digging for the sake of time, and things have changed. Things aren't like they were in the 90s or even early 2000s. Social media and the internet have just changed things where people need content rapidly, right? Like I think I'm working on 5 different projects right now. And like you mentioned, my social media, and that I've realized that if I need to get to where I would like to be, is I have to be in front of people's eyes at all times. And in order to do that, I have to have like a folder of beats of like, I have to have like 100 beats on deck at all times, right? And with 5 projects, that those deplete very, very quickly. Yeah. So I find days where I do, I will do analog digging with the vinyl. There's something about it, going to the store, touching it, feeling it, digging it, getting your hands dirty, literally and physically. So I will still do that. But time-wise, I find myself I download full albums. I have a different few methods. I like to download full albums and I'll check song by song and I can skip it. But the efficiency now of technology, you can't deny it. Like I have 65,000 songs on my iTunes right now, which are all potential samples. And I'll wake up in the morning, I literally hit play and shuffle. And it's just like, and then I have a rating system. So iTunes allows you to have stars. So if I hear it and I'm like, yo, this is dope, but it's just like not quite what I want to work on right then, I'll put 5 stars. And then I can always go back to my 5 stars later. And I know that these are going to be dope. If it's like good, but like I don't really know where it's going, I put 4 stars. Don't ask me why. 3 stars is drums. 2 stars is like, there's like hits of things in there, but it's not really a beat or whatever. And then 1 is just trash. But I do a little bit of both. Just the efficiency of digital. I probably do a little bit more digital digging these days. The other thing is vinyl costs a lot of money. And for the records I want, like I was ordering records from Japan, from Russia, and things like that. And that just, it doesn't come cheap. So
yeah. That's interesting, man. Really love the way you broke down your process there. And that's the first time I heard of something like that. Like you have your own library with these albums and that you'll throw them on shuffle. That's very interesting. How did you build up the catalog? Like just sitting there going through different albums, or?
It's literally, I'll be doing multitasking. It's like I'm listening and I'm downloading. Like I'm looking and searching. And it's like, some people have complained about my music listening habits these days. Like, just listen to the song, but it's like I'm constantly like fast forwarding. Like the only time I listen to hip hop and rap is in my car going to and from work. When I'm at home, it's all work. It's like, you know, unless some people are here and they want, you know, they don't want to hear. Because if you ever want to have a weird situation, is have friends over and play your sample playlist, and it will go from like gospel music singing about Jesus to like Ukrainian folk songs, and then people are just like, what is going on your playlist? But yeah, that's it started. I used to have a bigger one, but I lost a hard drive, so now I have it backed up on my computer and an external hard drive. So I have it backed up now because I can't afford. There is something to be said about losing it, because then you start fresh and you're always digging.
Yeah, that's true. But it hurts. It hurts, man. A lot of artists I interview, they have similar stories where, you know, files were lost, the hard drive, whatever. So it almost seems like part of the process. So back up your stuff, people. We don't want it to happen.
The advice I'll give is I have an external hard drive that has a Dropbox link on it. So everything I drag onto that external hard drive is on the hard drive and automatically goes up to the Dropbox cloud, double saved automatically. So if that hard drive dies, you still have it on Dropbox and you can re-download it after. So that's my advice.
Gems, people, gems. What sort of equipment do you use nowadays? I heard you mention Machine before. Are you still rocking with that? What sort of equipment, hard drive, and software do you use?
So I am still on Machine MK1. This is the first one they came out with. This is my second one, and I'm trying to buy a third one because the pads are starting to die. The process is there, like my workflow is there, so I don't want to change. I'm on like a 2012 Mac because the second I upgrade this, the machine goes obsolete. And so I'm dreading the day, but it's going to come soon. But yeah, I got an Machine MK1. I use the Machine software, and then I bring everything over to Logic and sequence over there. I keep it simple. Again, you know, even with my gear, I keep it simple. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm happy with my workflow. I'm able to make beats that people seem to like, so I don't want to change anything.
Keep it going. Keep it going. Exactly. Do you do more work over email with artists or in person?
Over email. Instagram is definitely, you know, the people I want to work with. I'm in London, Ontario now. I worked with a lot of artists in BC and in Vancouver, and that was a little bit more in person. But as I've switched, you know, what I want to do, it's kind of like this mentality of like, once I stopped, I guess, entertaining or like feeling like I had to entertain the local scene, I gained an international audience. So I just really go after, I don't think anyone's too big for me. You know what I mean? Like like I just, yo, this person would sound dope on my beat, and I'll try. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and then I go from there. And it's there's people I've worked with from North Carolina, from New York, New Jersey, Buffalo, and still some people out in Vancouver and BC. But locally there are some dope rappers here in London. I was down in Toronto yesterday. Actually, I linked up with Rick Hyde and El Camino. They were over from Buffalo, and then I linked with Ace on Eastwood. And Ace is in Toronto or just outside of Toronto. Now even though we're in Ontario, like we're in the same province, we're still a couple hours away. So even that still goes a lot of email back and forth, phone calls, video calls, and so on. So again, technology has just made things easier and more efficient.
Talk about sort of building up the relationship with people over the web, though. I find it to be pretty easy myself. A lot of the people that I've asked to interview, they've been very open and, respond on IG pretty, in a pretty efficient time manner, I would say, compared to what you would think sometimes. But talk about sort of that building up that working relationship over the web with artists.
It just takes time and being a genuine person. I mean, I think people feel like because they're behind a computer screen that like all of a sudden all rules of humanity are thrown out the window, right? And it comes off very selfish. A lot of times, like if it's an art, and I can't even deny, like even some of the networking and stuff that I do, it can be considered opportunistic, right? But we all are. That's the nature of being human in a way. But it's like it's done in a way because like it's an opportunity because I actually like that person's work, right? So I always try and approach it like I'll give compliments in that and be like, and then just let it go from there. You stay on, let's say you're on Instagram. I use Instagram a lot, and I'll refer to Instagram a lot. But like, let's say I like their work. Well, I'm going to be on their page, liking, commenting, giving compliments, shoot them a DM. And you get a lot of people and it's just like, yo fam, what up? Let's work. And it's like, what do I get from that? Like, I don't know who you are, right? So if you give someone a compliment, people's ego gets stroked. They're, oh, okay. Then they start seeing your name, liking their stuff. And then maybe they get curious and they look at your stuff. Next thing they know, they click on a beat and they're like, oh, okay, this guy's actually dope. And then, you start that way. Let it go natural. But sometimes you got to take that leap of faith and be like, yo, what up? Like, but like never off the jump, like, hey fam, you want to work? The classic. But just give it time, let it breathe. And then the other thing is show value, right? You and I started this, this relationship off you hitting up me to do an interview, right? And me as an artist, I see value in that because you're giving me a platform to talk my shit, right? And so there's value. And now we have this open dialogue. If you need anything, if you have questions, if you're like, yo, Imperative, I see you do graphic design. Could you do something for me? Well, you know what I mean? Like there's this back and forth now. And I'd be more than happy to. So.
Hey, I'm going to send you an email with a bunch of questions tomorrow. But I appreciate that, man.
It's got to be a two-way street. It's got to be a two-way road, right? For between artists and anyone, right? It's got to be a two-way street. It's a give and a take.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that and, building that relationship, I mean, you've been emailing me your music, over the past couple of months. And that means a lot to a DJ, who's just kind of starting out and trying to really build a name or relationship with artists in this underground circle. Don't get me wrong. I love supporting artists. You'll see a ton of independent vinyl and merch that I have, but it's nice for, especially a producer to be like, hey, here's my new music. Check it out. Here's the download link. Here's where you can find it. Like all this information laid out that way. Like, I don't think I've really ever received emails like that unless it was from like somebody's manager almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been told we did have this conversation too. That took a while. So actually, when I first started, I started working with an artist. His name was Jay West, who's actually is and still is a dope rapper. He just decided it wasn't the path for him. So he kind of stopped. But at that time, it was like trying to give an example here. Yeah, it was a producer and a rapper combo, right? And then it got to a point where my mentality always is I can do anything. And so if there's something that needs to be done, if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to learn how to do it. Right. So out of necessity for wanting him and I to succeed, I had to become his manager. Right. And it was unintentional. It's just how it happened. But I started booking shows. I started like, okay, well, people are getting their music on blogs. Well, how do I get our music on blogs? Right. So do a quick Google search, start sending it out, start asking people like, hey, and then I think I told you like the send out that you saw and that you received, that took years of kind of like figuring out what works. And I mean, I still get people sending, no one really like, hey, stop sending me stuff, but like people will just hit me back with like their price list. I'm like, okay, cool. But yeah, it just came from necessity of learning and trying to figure out the best way to send this to people to make sure, again, provide value. If I'm just sending you like a run-on sentence, right, that tells you nothing and sending an MP3 directly to your inbox that's filling up space, you're probably like, this doesn't help me. What is this garbage, right? Mm-hmm. So
I appreciate it, man. Keep doing your thing. And people should be taking notes for sure. But you talked about sort of being in a group with Jay West. I did see a picture of you with Dizzy Wright that you opened for him for a show.
Yeah, we opened for Dizzy Wright. I can't even remember when that was. Obviously, just after 2010. Jay West and I, like, honestly, like that way, like to kind of reminisce a bit here, like we were on a path, like we were, I think we were the first hip hop act in Vancouver that was going to get paid by Live Nation up front. Everyone else had to kind of sell tickets and stuff. And I went in there as a manager. We did shows for 6 months and we always sold out our tickets. So I took it like a job, and I called up the booking manager, and I was like, yo, can I have a meeting with you? And I went in there, dressed like a businessman and sat down and I said, look, here's our ticket sales. We always bring people out. But it takes away from our show. We can't rehearse as much. We can't do as much. We're selling tickets. We're focused on this. We've proven this over 6 months. We're going to continue pushing. We just don't want to have, and we want to be paid up front. And they were just like, okay. And like I remember at the time, she was an editor of Hip Hop Canada. She called me. She's like, "How did you get that? Like, what? Like, I'm like the editor of Hip Hop Canada. My artists aren't even getting paid." I was just like, again, I approached it like a job, right? And I take it serious. And I take what I do seriously. And if you take it serious, other people are going to take you serious. So.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure for that Dizzy Wright tour, I was at quite a few of his shows as he passed through New York. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I saw that, I think it was like maybe the State of Mind tour. I'm pretty sure I saw him on that. So
you saw that tour too? Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, really dope.
He was high as fuck.
Expect nothing less from some of these artists, right?
Look at that photo. You can just see he's just like, where am I?
Yeah. And the one I got with him too. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
So let's get into sort of the business aspect of, the music and what you do. One in the Chamber Records, that's your label?
Yeah.
Talk about sort of how you came to the decision of building up your own label. I mean, we just sort of mentioned Dizzy Wright, somebody who's been pushing the independent grind for a long time, and you just kind of having this almost business mentality maybe from early on, right?
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship has always been something that I've been intrigued by. I had clothing companies in high school and things like that. I produced and did snowboard videos in that realm as well. My mind is just always running 100 miles per minute. So One in the Chamber Records really came out of, it was a marketing strategy. It wasn't a business strategy. It was part of a business strategy, but it was a marketing strategy. I had this dope track, Under the Scope, with Benny the Butcher and Rick Hyde, and I needed to figure out the best way to get it out there. So I'm not Derringer, I'm not Alchemist, I'm not Harry Fraud, right? I'm Imperative from Canada. If I release that song from my platform, my fans and people that support me are going to be like, dope. But people that are supporters of Benny and Rick Hyde might look past it. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out ways. So one, I'm rocking the hoodie with the art from Sep for the cover. So step one was I knew I wanted to get art that was recognizable. Judge a book by its cover, right? Everyone does it. They say not to do it, but everyone does it. So I wanted to get art by Sepp. So when people look at this, they recognize it, like, yo, that's Griselda art. And I'll tell a story about this in a second too. And then they'd be like, you know, if they feel like it's within that realm, because like I said before, I know I can produce with the best of them, like in terms of like songs, and Under the Scope, I feel holds up to that. But now how was I going to get it out there? So I paid Benny for his feature. You know, I don't try and hide this like it was like some like collab. I just called him up and, yo, Benny, I want a feature, and he sent it. I'll talk openly about this, but I saw an opportunity, and you know, I assessed on paper like, okay, the feature is going to cost me this much. The art's going to cost me this much. The mix and master costs this much. Okay, I'm going to spend even more money to take that art, to get it put onto t-shirts and hoodies. I'm going to get prints done up. And then I'm going to get vinyl, right? Like, this is how I'm going to make my money back and make the most out of it. So if, like I said, if I release this from my platform, it was going to go to my platform, but I needed to reach past my platform. So One in the Chamber was something that was in the back of my head for like just the name. So I was like, okay, if I do this as my own record label, it doesn't come off as a release from Imperative. It comes off as a release from this record company, right? So it took me out of the equation. Now I'm just the dope producer that made this track, rather than the dope producer, like the producer that no one knows that's releasing this song. So from there, it literally just came from a day, like thinking about One in the Chamber. So One in the Chamber is like a rare 45. That the whole idea is like, rare hip hop 45s. So the One in the Chamber is the song. So it's because it's one song on the record. So the record looks like the back of a bullet, a 45 caliber gun, and then the 45 RPM record. So there's kind of all these tie-ins. And it was like euphoria. I was like, yo, and it just like all started coming in. I think I designed the logo and Illustrator and started the Instagram, got the Facebook page, got it all. And then like even from there, it was like, okay, like I got this dope art from Sepp. And then I'd been seeing this dope 3D artist. So I got him to turn the art into this 3D graphic so I could make these commercials and videos.
Really dope. Really dope.
And now he's actually, I don't know if you follow that guy, Amri. He's super talented. He's now done 3D work that was at one of the Alchemist shows. He's done stuff for DJ Premier now as well. And so it's like this tie-ins, but it was all marketing, but I guess marketing ties in with business.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it's part of the same side of it.
Yeah. It's Ricky. Big BSF shit, you know. Look. Head on the swivel, Kyrie Irving, my shots come off the dribble. Far as dog food go, shit, I was killing them off of kibbles. The second notice, this my show. I'm Malcolm in the middle, had the 30 before Curry. I'm talking Kerry Kittles, move the product on yo block, nigga, what's poppin'? Neiman Marcus, don't come if you ain't really shopping. But Scottie Pippen in my back, he got me seeing options. Half a pound of this alone costed Larry Johnson. Sammy Watkins, you had the ball and then you dropped it. I played for pride.
Can you talk about your initial connection to sort of Griselda and BSF? Obviously, you know, you talked about reaching out through Instagram, building up that relationship, but what was it like actually first trying to connect with them?
I mean, Westside and I actually had like a bit of a conversation, like, and this was like before he really blew us. I want to say this would be 2017, 2016. I mean, they were blowing up at that point, but like, he was still checking DMs at that point. But I was working at a nightclub. I was a bar back, and Gustavo Fring, the actor that played him, was in the bar, and he was in the VIP. And I was like, yo, have you ever heard this West Side Gun song called Gustavo? And he's like, no. So I played it for him. And then I was like, yo, can I take a photo of you? So I took a photo of him and sent it to West Side. And West Side's like, yo, we got to get him in the music video. So this is a small conversation. But then when I moved out east and I like really like decided I was like, I'm just going to do what I want now. Like, I'm just going to make the sound that I want rather than trying to make all these trap beats and wait for placements and stuff like that. It was almost like it was in my head, but it was like, you know, when you see like the FBI board and they're like connecting the mob bosses to like the under bosses and that,
Yes,
it was
yes.
like, it it was like that, but it was like on Instagram. It was like, okay, like Benny's here. Who's liking his posts? Who's on in his photos and stuff like that? And you just started getting a sense of who the scene was. You know, like you could do the same for, you know, Umbrella. You could do the same for any of them, really, right? And so I came across Rick Hyde, and I was, again, it was like, I became a fan first and foremost as I saw that he was rapping. But at that time, he was just a producer. He was like Benny's right-hand man as a producer. And I saw he was rapping. So I was like, yo, man, I think you're really dope. Like I said earlier, you just reach out like that. And then I bought his vinyl, and then, you know, kept going. And then, you know, we're going back and forth on beats, and I got him on the first track, Bricks. And then just kind of grew from there. And I was in Buffalo last October for a beat auction held by Beats Anonymous. And then after, I was like, yo, Rick, are you around? Like, I brought some Under the Scope vinyl. Like, I want to give them to you. You know, you were a big part of this song. And I'd like to just give you some vinyl that you can give to Benny and that, you know, whatever. And again, it just comes down to being genuine, right? Because that's literally what my intention was. Like, you know, you were on this track. I just want to give you the vinyl. So I linked up with him in his studio, and he actually invited me up to a BSF recording session. He's like, yo, you got those fire beats, come up. So I went up, and I mean, El Camino was there, Heem was there, Hyde was there. Everyone was there except for Benny, essentially. So for like a producer like me, like, you know, I was like in heaven. I didn't get a chance to play any beats, but just the opportunity to be accepted enough to be invited up there. He's like, yo, you want to come up? And I was like, nah, like, you guys are having a label session. I don't want to like intrude. And he's like, no, come up. So it all just comes down to being genuine, right? And true, right? Like, I've done artwork for Rick Hyde as well. A few pieces that he needed here and there. That's the thing, is like, if people need something, I'll help out if I can. As long as that energy is reciprocated. If I find that energy is not being reciprocated, then yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Is there still any vinyl or merch available for like Under the Scope, or that you have in general? And if so, where can people find that?
So one in the chamber records.bandcamp.com, and there are still some 45s there. They're limited. There's basically I kind of fell into a positive situation in that they fucked up the vinyl. The company that pressed them fucked up a couple of them, but they let me keep them. So then I came into some extra vinyl. Now they play completely fine. It was just like cosmetic thing. So marketing wise, I advertise that and market it as such. But there is still some vinyl there. The other place is Imperative, imperetiv.bandcamp.com. No Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes vinyl anymore. I gotta re-up. I'm saying that now, you got me thinking. I'm like, I gotta get some new merch up there. But yeah, those are the two places to get the merch. One in the Chamber Records. Actually, I think so. I think oitcrecords.bandcamp.com. Short format, make it a little bit easier. And then imperative.bandcamp.com.
All right, man. Be on the lookout. I'm gonna have to scoop one of those vinyls for sure. So you'll be shipping one out to Colorado real soon.
All right, I appreciate that.
Let's talk about sort of hip hop in Canada for a little bit, or at least what I know, what I've been exposed to about it. So, I mean, I do interviews, so I couldn't not mention Nardwuar, right? Somebody who's done amazing hip hop interviews. You know, a big influence of mine. You know, just to be real about it. So Nardwuar, obviously, a DJ that I follow very closely, Scratch Bastard. He's an amazing DJ who, you know, he was one of the first people that was live streaming, inspired me to start live streaming. Definitely one of those DJs. And yeah, his style is amazing. Main Source, to reference the 90s, right? Two of the members in Main Source, K-Cut and Sir Scratch. Also, you know, that group included Large Professor, but I got that one on vinyl, colored vinyl. One of my favorite hip hop groups from the 90s. So obviously, more recently, Drake and other people have had a big influence in the community that are from Canada. But talk about sort of growing up in Canada and the hip hop influence around you. I guess you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but it was pretty prevalent, I would say.
I mean, a lot of my influence, like I said, came from skateboarding and snowboard videos. Hieroglyphics was one of the first. Swollen Members at the time was big because they were like friends with people that, so their music ended up in a lot of snowboard videos. Respect to Prevail of Swollen Members, not as much respect to Mad Child these days. The Rascals, I think I still have the CD. I had a chance to work with Flip Out, who worked with Rascals. Checkmate and Concise, I've done some art and worked with not on music, but we've like, worked on different things. But yeah, my music over the years, I think, like, because like my family, we grew up on like the outskirts, like, small towns. So like my parents weren't like huge music people. So like my music taste over the years was eclectic at best and then all over. And I mean, my real, like, I loved hip hop. Like, I think the first song that really like changed things was Big L, The Fallback. When I heard that song, I was like, hearing Big L's voice and cadence and flow. I mean, I didn't even know it was a cadence or a flow at that time. I was just like hearing it and like, what is this, right? And then that really was a big thing. But Canadian hip hop has been an interesting thing, and I mean, it still is now. In terms of right now, Toronto's got a great thing going on. So, like I mentioned, I'm working on a project with Asun Eastwood. Asun is a very dope rapper. And if you haven't heard of Asun, definitely check him out. And he's worked with Finn and Future Wave, who are two big Canadian hip hop producers. That if you like what I do, you'll definitely like what they do. Marco Polo. Mm-hmm. But Canada's scene is I mean, it's similar to States. The States and Canada were two countries that are very big, and we have a big distance between the East Coast and the West Coast. And so there's a lot of variation in the sound. And I think every city you go in, and there's pockets of different types of sound of everything that people do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something interesting I'm finding out about Denver and Colorado also. There's many different pockets and sounds and styles. There's not really sort of one style like you would traditionally think of East Coast hip hop or West Coast hip hop. So it's interesting to hear, the similar thing is going on in Canada, and it's good, right? It's healthy. It's fresh to have people doing different things, right?
Exactly. There's actually, I'm trying to find it right now because I'm gapping. But one of the most important hip hop like breaks in hip hop was actually recorded in Vancouver, BC at Mushroom Studios. And I can't remember which break it was, and I don't want to say it wrong because then this producer, he doesn't even know. But I'm shitting the bed on it. But
you're good, man. We'll find it after, and we'll definitely put the information.
I don't know if it was the Amen break or what. Like I can hear it. It's got. Oh no, there we go. It's the Incredible Bongo Band, the Apache break. That was
okay. Yeah.
That was what was recorded at Mushroom Studio in Vancouver. It's not a studio anymore, but like I used to get dropped off the bus to head to work at the snowboard shop, and like you could see it there. So.
Dope, man. That's legendary. I've
never actually sampled it myself, but I should.
That's funny. One thing I was going to say is that your samples are not very recognizable. You seem to stay away from things that, people are very familiar with, or you will, change them up in a certain way that, is not very familiar to us. Is that intentional?
That's definitely intentional. I dig deep. As I mentioned, my iTunes has like 65,000. And I order records from like Russia and Japan. I definitely try and stay away from things that other people have done. And I think it gives it a little bit of uniqueness and its own flavor. And there's also certain samples. Once you hear it and hear the way someone else flipped it, it's like there's no other way it could be flipped. So I'm just going to be doing something so like close. Maybe it's slightly different, but it's still going to sound like that. So I try and find, things that are hidden and kind of, I'll do a test. Like I'll put my phone and Shazam on and see, does it find it? Oh shit, it finds it. All right. I'll just leave that alone, or I'll do something.
That's funny.
But I'll like, if I hear something, like I'll check who sampled and see if anyone else has done it. And I'll do those kind of tests, and sometimes I'll like if someone has used it. I mean, it's not that you can never make another beat out of it, but there's some sounds that it's like no matter how you flip it, those key sounds come through, and it doesn't doesn't matter what you do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, almost feels like a rendition, or people will just automatically think of that first track, if they're familiar with it.
Exactly.
Let's get into burial plots and pyramid schemes. Let's talk about that album. That was your latest. I don't want to say fully produced album because you've released other albums with artists, but that's your last Imperative release, correct?
Yeah, and actually, you know what though? I think you are right though, because like I did Together in Pieces with Junk, which was only 6 tracks, and I did Full Circle, which was only 6 tracks. So this is like really like my first full length.
So the first real full length project, you would say.
Yeah.
So how would you describe Full Circle?
Full Circle was, so I actually had the idea for Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes before I did for Full Circle. But I knew at the time I wasn't ready. I didn't have the artist list. I didn't have the full beat catalog that I wanted in terms of sound. And I had all these other songs that were sitting there. And I hate wasting songs. I hate wasting verses. I hate, like, because artists would be like, oh, that's like 2 years old. And it's like, it's 2 years old for you, but for anyone else, it's new, right? And so I hate wasting stuff. So I had a bunch of songs, and it's like, I have to get this out. And it was right around the time that I was actually moving from Vancouver. I decided like my time was up there and it was time to come back to Ontario. And so it was full circle in a lot of ways, because I was born and raised in Ontario, moved out west, and then I'm back in Ontario. So there was the full circle of that. I think I was getting close to, or it was right around the 10 years of making beats. So, I felt kind of a full circle of where I was in my career of doing that. But it was just a project that I needed to get out before I could move into this new chapter of Imperative and who I was and who I wanted my sound to be and so on.
So you talked about having the idea for Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes, for a while. Talk about that, like, building it, the evolution of the idea. Did you know exactly, what you wanted it to be from the beginning? Talk about that process.
So I mean, as a producer and beat maker, like I'll be making beats and like sometimes I can't help it. Like I'm not a rapper and I'm not gonna like spit a freestyle for you or anything like that. But like sometimes I just can't help but like the words like because you're like imagining how someone else would sound. So like I have some bars, but like again I'm not gonna spit a freestyle, but like it kind of came to me in that like in like a bit of a writing. It was like Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes. So it was a play off of plot and scheme. Like the phrase plot and scheme, and just added burial in front of plots and pyramid in front of schemes, right? And kind of like was this metaphorical psychedelic sort of imagery, and I was like, that is hard, right? Like it just made sense. And then there is going to be a continuation to that album called High Hopes and Lucid Dreams, so that's a play off hope and dream. So putting those words in front of there, Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes, High Hopes and Lucid Dreams. So it rhymes, so you can kind of hear the bars there, right? And then I was like, yeah, and then it also, not to talk about horoscopes, but I am a Libra, so there's balance there. And then it's like I have a blue eye and a brown eye, so it's the balance, right? And for some reason, I always feel like my life has this balance of good and evil, dark and light. So if you look at Full Circle, it's I have a blue eye and a brown eye. And so the cover is my two eyes put together. So you kind of get the light of the blue and the dark of the brown. So that started there, and then Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes comes off as a very dark imagery, where High Hopes and Lucid Dreams comes off as a little bit more lighter. So get to play into that a little bit more. But I think I was looking at it, I think I like tweeted Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes for no real purpose. I just tweeted those words. I think it was like 2015 or something like that. And then
quite a while,
yeah. And then for some reason I'll come up with these ideas and they just sit there and they resonate and they brew and stew for you. Like Imperative, the name Imperative came in 2008 before I moved to Vancouver, before I was even doing music. And then when I started making beats, I was gonna put my first beat on SoundCloud. I was like, what's my name gonna be? Like, oh, I still got this thing Imperative hanging around there, so I'm just gonna pull that and use that. But I forget what it was, but I think Josiah the Gift was one of the first rappers in this realm of underground, grimy, boom bap renaissance that sent me a track back. like over that sound, and it was Blind Loyalty. So that track sat there, I want to say for 3-4 years, really sat there. But that set the tone, and it's the intro. And so it sets the tone of the album. It set the tone of what I wanted the whole album to sound like, which was this really grimy, like, you know, if you were to imagine burial plots and pyramid schemes, what does that sound like? Or what does that look like? And what does that look like sound like? And that's where it came from. So it just chipped away at it. And next thing you know, I had the 12 tracks, and it's like, this is it.
12 tracks with some heavy hitters on there for sure. This one features Benny, as we mentioned, Rick Hyde, G4 Jag, A-Sun Unique, as you mentioned. A lot of cuts.
A-Sun Eastwood.
A-Sun Eastwood, excuse me. El
Is
Camino, a whole bunch of people, right? I mean, talk about, I mean, was there one verse that you got back that you were more blown away by than the other ones, that you were just like, wow, I wasn't really, maybe you weren't expecting it, but it was just, you know, it hit differently than when you received the other ones?
Not really. I got love for all of them. I think a lot of them, like, I mean, it feels different where I'm at now. Like, this process, I want to say, started like 2018, 2019 of like really sort of getting it going. Like when the Benny track came in, I mean, I was like a kid in a candy shop. It's like getting that Christmas present you were asking for all year. It's like I'm a fan of this music before I'm a producer, and I'll never stop being a fan, right? And it's cool when people that you look up to or admire, and you think that they do what they do well. For example, Rick Hyde. Like the fact that I walked into Purple Factory yesterday, and he's like, "Yo, my guy," right? Like, we're probably around the same age, but like, I think he's a dope rapper. And I think like, I really respect what he does as an artist. So to have that, like when the Benny verse came in, like, I'm not gonna lie, I jumped up and did like a little, like, you know, like, like, I'm listening to their Griselda stuff. Like a lot of us are, like, you know, like you can't deny it. Right. And we're listening as fans. And so to get that back and be like, yo, that is Benny rapping on my song. You know what I mean? And like, I remember sending it to my engineer. I was just like, yo, I sent you files for a new song. And he get a text back. He's like, is this what I think it is? And I'm like, you know, like, so like the butterfly effect, right? Like even the engineer, he's been a fan of Alchemist. My engineer's been a fan of Alchemist since like early 2000. He tells me how he was like in Alchemist, message boards and stuff like that. So he really enjoys working on my beats because there's like elements of that. And so to see that Benny feature come in is like, yeah, you know.
The DA want me gift wrap, but if that happened, it ain't cause bricks back. It's all cause a nigga brought talking slick back. I get that, cause they ain't expect my shit that had its impact. My clientele used to come get packs out of chit chats. I'm samurai chopping, that's how I handle my problems. I throw shells at your door like they Amazon boxes. This what it mean when you ride. First do your homework, then you slide, then let them fly out the window screaming, this one for the guys. Your legacy debatable, my hunger just unmistakable. In my 3-year run ain't been nothing but motivational. Before a check from a label, I had a neck full of cables. Don't do no deals with these know-it-alls and expect it to save you.
Really dope. Project also features YNX, which is the last interview I just dropped. So make sure you guys go check that out. Another really dope MC from Buffalo, New York as well.
And YNX and we got some more coming for sure. We're definitely working more. Him and I have like, I want to say like, the joke I make is like, I'm trying to create the imperative verse, you know, like the Marvel multiverse, and any of these people that I've worked with. And I'm not saying everyone that I worked with on that album, like that, you know, it's all good from here on out. Some of them I probably won't work with again. You know, there's the little hiccups and bumps in the roads and things like that. But there's artists like YNX who, you know, we've had a great relationship, and I think we've wanted to work on music more. It's just timing and right time, right place sort of thing. But I know we have one in the vault at the moment, and, you know, there's definitely more to come. But my goal is basically anyone, if you fuck with me, I fuck with you. And if you don't fuck with me, then I don't fuck with you. And this is where the imperative multiverse comes. Is like anyone that was on Barrel Plots and Pyramid Schemes, if they gave me a verse, I would like to do a project with them. You know what I mean? And work with those people, because and now it comes to that too, is like they have to be working hard. If they're not working hard, if they're not matching my energy in terms of working hard, and they're like, yo, I need a verse. And I'm like, I'll tell them even like, yo, what do you want a verse for? Like, so you can sleep on it and release it and do nothing, you know, like I hate being that guy, but this shit means everything to me. And I'm trying to do everything I possibly can. This shit is not a hobby to me. Like it's a hobby that I would do anything for. And I'm trying to make it my every single day life. Right. And so if people aren't matching, they're like, yo, I just want a verse, put out a track. It's like, why? Like, it just, like, I get it. Like you love it too, but it's a hobby. But like, everything needs to be calculated and strategized to be like I'm trying to live, you know, so I can be creative every single day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Make it worth his while, people. Make it worth his while. But
make it worth their while too. Like it's not just me, it's make it worth their while. Like it's cool if you want to be if you want to be a hobby rapper, that's cool. Pay me for a beat, buy a beat and do what you want to do with it. But if you are like if I can see that you are working, like there's some artists, and I hate, like, I'm not trying to drop names, but like there's some artists where I was like, okay, like they're coming up, like they're progressing and getting better. They bought a beat. It's like, and I bought verses from people, and it's like this. It's like you go to a club, you go to a hot club, and there's a bouncer, right? You either have to wait in line and wait your turn, or maybe you slip them 100 and they let you in early, right? Money can sometimes open that door. And so there's one artist, they bought a beat and they wanted to buy more. But then I saw his grind, I saw his hustle, and I could see the progression. You know, like he wasn't like a top tier lyricist, but I could see the progression. And it's the day old saying, right? Like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard. And just based off his work ethic, I was like, this is a guy I want to work with, right? And that changed everything. There's probably talented rappers and like more talented and asking me for beats, but they're just not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dope, man. Yeah, there's a lot of music that people should be checking out of yours. You also have a lot of instrumental albums that you put together. So those are mostly or maybe just some of them I noticed, like Zaza tracks. Like, so those are tracks that you produce for other artists, but you compiled them into your own sort of instrumental issue of it, as you will, right?
Yeah. So this is like, I always try in interviews, I guess I intentionally or unintentionally end up dropping gems. But the reason why I drop these instrumentals is producers, get your business game up here. And this is a tip. When you produce a track, when you make a beat, you own that beat. As so long as you don't sell your rights. Like when I sell a beat, if I sell a beat, I sell exclusive rights. It's not exclusive ownership. I still retain 100% of that beat. They can put their raps on it and no one else will have that. But that means I can still do what I want from that instrumental and make money. So if that song got released, sure, I'd get a percentage of that in the publishing. So SOCAN for Canada, ASCAP, BMI. But then the master, I usually ask for about, artists are pretty like good with it because I don't charge like, thousands on thousands of dollars. They'll give me, any upwards to around 20%. But then I have this instrumental. So if I let it sit there, it's not doing anything. But if I release this instrumental, I get 100% of that. There's no rapper I have to pay royalties to. That's just me, right? And so why not package it and put it up there and get some more streams? And then, rappers can, and I'm reutilizing it now. The big thing, I think Kato is one of the big guys who started this, was like the whole remix this beat or whatever, right? And then you get all the Instagram and TikTokers rapping.
Yeah.
Now, so I put all those instrumentals out there and there's rapping on it. Well, they're sharing it and it shows my beat. And then people are like, yo, what beat is this? Who's the producer? Where do I go remix this? And it just gives it new life and new way. So the whole thing is, again, it's a business marketing strategy. It's like, it's a dope beat and why shouldn't it be out there? It's music at the end of the day.
Yeah. I agree, man. I agree. I love it. And, I love all the different versions of your albums that you put out. You put out a regular version. You put out the radio edited version. You put out the instrumental. You put out the deluxe. Like, there really is a systematic way that you're doing things. And it's sort of a little bit of a ode to the classic way of doing things, right? Having all these different versions of the track, especially like when a single comes out, you want it to be played on radio. Maybe terrestrial radio doesn't have, they don't play a lot of underground hip hop, but they're definitely not going to play if there's not a clean version of it. So just giving it that opportunity to get played somewhere, it's, you know, it means a lot. Producers, take notes and step up your game. All right.
Understanding the algorithms too is like, so let's say the song I just dropped, which you just got the email for, Walk With Me, right? So that had an unreleased verse, right? And I was like, well, it's just sitting here. What am I going to do? So let's put this out. So by putting out that, packaging it with the instrumental and the radio edit and the extended version, all that, I can now repitch it to editorial on Spotify. It just got on release radar, which if you pitch it, no matter what, it will get on release radar. I think it has, that just dropped last Friday. I think it has 300 streams just off release radar alone, right? And so now it's bringing back people to the original song as well. So it's just, it breathes a whole new life into it. I forget which channel it was. Like it was either DJ Payne One, Music Entrepreneurship Club or something like that. But they're just like, rather than focusing on trying to keep putting out new music, it's trying to figure out how to monetize the music you've already put out there. So like we all, like if we've released music, we have these catalogs that are sitting there and it's like, cool, I made this dope song, see you later. And never like, you know, it's like, I keep going back to under the scope and people are probably like, yo, we get it, bro. You got a song with Benny the Butcher, Rick Hyde. But it's like, that's my biggest song. Why would I stop promoting it? You know, like I mentioned, I linked up with Rick Hyde in Toronto yesterday. I took a photo. Well, I posted a story and I put his verse from that song on there, right? It's just, and then maybe I gained, let's just say 100 followers since that song released. Maybe this is the first time they heard it, right? And then next thing you know. So on that note too, is like, I didn't have the budget to do it before, but I actually have an animated music video coming out for Under the Scope, which will hopefully be in the next couple of weeks. But it's like a cartoon, grimy cartoon style. So I haven't even seen it yet. So I'm hoping everything looks good and goes smooth. But the guy who did it is dope, so I expect it to be dope.
Mm-hmm. Salute to you on the graphic design end as well. You did the cover for Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes?
I did not do the cover for Burial Plots and Pyramid Schemes. That was Jordan Commander, who is out of BC, which I didn't know at the time, but he used to be a former manager of Air Vinyls, and I'd seen him doing art and stuff. And again, it was just another calculated. I liked the art; it was very dope. It's comic book cutouts, collage, which I hadn't really seen anyone do. And it just like in my head, I could picture the cover before I saw it, sort of thing. And he did his own thing, but again, it was like, how can I tap into this market? Like, how can I get in here and have people want to hear it, sort of thing, just by looking at it? So I do my own cover art, but my art is not recognizable in that world. So I just left this one aside. It was, you know.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. But still having the vision and, you know, wanting to bring it to life, you know, like you said, being a producer, right? You may not actually be doing the work, but you have the idea to bring it all together and produce something.
Exactly.
I like it. So kind of wrapping up here, what should we be looking for in 2023? More imperative produce projects, I'm sure. Maybe singles, more work with other artists. Break it down. What should we be on the lookout for?
I think it started like even later last year, but I've been releasing something every 2 weeks on, like, if you go on Spotify, something's been released every single 2 weeks. So I've already released Guillotine with Jay Roberts, instrumentals issue number 3, Walk With Me extended version just came out. The Precedent instrumentals from the project with Shane Ashley, those drop not next week, the week after. Then I got a project with Joe Sig. That's coming out. That's 7 tracks. I got a single with Slick Jack from Montreal, which we're finishing. He's got a project with Static Selecta. Got a project with Ace on Eastwood, which I'm finishing up. Got a project with Blocklord, which is in the midst of being finished up. Project with Super Caliente, who's from Buffalo, which is in the midst of being followed up. Project with Jay Roberts that's getting finished up. And then trying to get something finished up with G4 Jag as well. We've got like 4 or 5 in the vault. So trying to turn those 4 and 5 into probably 12.
Nice, man. Nice. Sounds like he's got more than one in the chamber right now, people. All right. So it's going to be a busy 2023 for him, wrapping up all these projects and, you know, releasing, not just releasing, there's a whole strategy behind it. So, hey, guys, follow along this year. Take notes. We'll all learn something. A big part of conversations with TMac is music, obviously. Another big part is food, man. I got to know when I come to Canada, when I come to London, Ontario, where do I got to go for the food? Where are the best eats? And specifically, I'm a pizza guy. So if there's a pizza spot, and then just give me your go-to spots in general.
I'm a pizza guy too. I can't even remember the name of it. I just know where it is. I just drive there and go to it. I'll be honest, I haven't made it out in London as much as I moved here and it was COVID, so I didn't get out as much as possible. I just did a show at a place called Soho's Taqueria, Tequila and Tacos. They have a barbisa. I can't even pronounce it right now, but it was really good. Shawarma is big in London. Baba's is where I go for my shawarma. They put it on the stage bread, get everything on there, get the roasted potatoes on the side with tzatziki. I love food too, and I love cooking, but in the state of our economy and the recession and everything right now, going out and eating is just stupid. So I'm a good enough cook that I'm happy making food here.
What's your go-to dish to whip up at home?
I've been doing these, I call it the imperative bowl. So it's quinoa on the bottom, spinach on top, pickled beets, pickled jalapenos, cucumbers, roasted bell peppers, avocado, and then grilled chicken on top. And then I'd use Nando spicy Peronaise sauce on top.
Ooh, okay, all right. I mean, we got the beet breakdowns. We're going to need the meal breakdown next, all right?
Yeah.
Hey, Imperative, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Anything else you want to let the people know before we get out of here?
It's imperative. Listen to the kid.